Sweet. So, welcome to the Tuesday Triggers podcast. Today we have a good friend of mine. We go way back in the space. He's a true OG, Harris Kenny of Outbound Sync. Welcome, bud. Good to have you.
Good to see you, man. What's
Yeah,
going on?
not much, man. Not much. For those of you that, for those of the people that are watching this that don't know you, you've kind of, again, we came up around the same time, which was at the very advent of this new wave of kind of style of thinking. Of course, we were both in roles prior to that in this space. But why don't you give everyone that's listening just a bit of a background on you, bud?
Absolutely. So had, like you said, we're not young. So had been doing different sales and
Speak for
marketing things.
yourself. Excuse me.
True. You're a spring chicken. So, had been doing sales and marketing stuff for a while, but I was working for myself. I ended up, after having a number of different jobs and growing and helping grow a number of different companies, put up a shingle, went out on my own, was doing sales consulting. And when I was talking to customers, they all wanted more leads. So, we would talk about sales process and getting a CRM set up, but really what they needed to grow their business. I ended up getting into the lead gen game that way. So, we were doing lead gen as a service for folks. We started with Close, moved to Lemlist. SmartLead came around. We were one of the earliest customers of SmartLead. And I ran and basically my consultancy turned into an agency, which I ran for about 3.5 years. And while I was running that agency, it was working, right? This new way of doing outbound works. People are getting leads where they weren't before. And if you're getting leads and you're a more mature organization, you are going to have a CRM. And that's going to be a problem because you need to get your leads into your system of record. And so that's how Outbound Sync was born. Customer asked, hey, can I get these SmartLead leads into HubSpot? And at the time, the answer was no. So in May 2023, I started working on that. October, we ended up getting some traction. We factored it into full code, and Outbound Sync was officially live in October 2023, and we've been going ever since. So we integrate sales engagement platforms like SmartLead, Instantly, Email Bison, and as of this week, our Hey Reach beta is going to be out. So that's for social, B2B social stuff talk about. And we get that data into HubSpot and Salesforce. And so that's what I'm doing. But we work with a ton of agencies still today. We've got an awesome agency partner program. We work with some of the best agencies in the world, ones that are top tier partners with all of the sequencers I mentioned and tools like Clay. And it's really early days still, I think. We're seeing this way of going to market, moving up market.
Yep.
And so I think that we're just kind of beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible, and bigger teams with more and more budget are saying, hey, we need to hedge what we're doing here because this isn't working. We know we're landing in spam. We're wasting hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars potentially on an outbound program that's not working. So I think the next couple of years are going to look really interesting.
It is going to look really interesting. And, obviously, if we look back on like how things have changed over the last, let's say just 10 years, right? First, it was like Apollo came in and democratized data, created a sequencer that was friendly to anyone could use it, right? You could afford Apollo. You could go in and build stuff yourself. And then eventually Apollo had like its own Achilles heel that everyone realized, hey, this isn't going to work for mass scale. Then came the SmartLeads, Instantly's, Email Bisons of the world. And now those tools are great, but lack some of the maybe enterprise level features. Now, I'm sure, everyone at those teams will probably see this and be like, screw you. But it's true, right? Like, so some of the things that they want to build their platform that's really good at sending emails, not necessarily tying into enterprise level systems and connecting those dots, which is a huge piece, right? So outside of just being able to funnel this into your CRM or your whatever platform you're using, you touched on a few things that might be beneficial that Outbound Sync also helps with. So being able to identify if things are going wrong or some of those things. So why don't you touch on that for a sec?
Yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of the early adopters of the latest version of Outbound, including myself, haven't necessarily worked within these larger organizations that have 500 to 2,000 to 10,000 plus employees. So, to be like a small C conservative, like the idea of Chesterton's fence, if a fence is there, it's probably there for a reason. Maybe don't take it down. Someone put it up for a reason, keeping something out, keeping something in, who knows? Outreach and SalesLoft exist the way they do for a reason. They built certain features for a reason. There are things that are in that platform around omni-channel outreach, around suppression lists, dynamically sort of triggering certain things or other things, or writing to certain properties so that other entirely different media can be used, like paid ads and triggering paid ads and things like that. So there are a lot of things that these tools do that like go beyond the initial job to be done of landing in the inbox. Now, I think they lost sight of that job to be done, which created this moment for all these other players to come in, right? And there's obviously a lot of volatility. Like Clary just merged with SalesLoft, and I'm sure that there's going to be efficiency gains from that and various sort of corporate jargony benefits. But the reality is, like, things probably weren't going very well for one or both of those companies for them to decide to merge. And that is probably not what they wrote down on a napkin when they went and raised money in the first place. Now, I'm sure that the private equity firm that's doing that roll up, I'm sure they're going to turn it into a different and a better company. But there's a lot of sort of tumult at the top end of the market where you add up those big sequencers and they're doing like probably 500 million to $1 billion in revenue if you combine Outreach and SalesLoft and Clary and Gong Engage. And then if you look at ZoomInfo's a sequencer product. And so it's like, what are people paying for up there?
Yeah.
It's not just sending emails. It's more than that. And so our philosophy at Outbound Sync, the way I think about it, is the CRM can be the system of record and the system that's triggering automation and reporting and revenue attribution and pushing things like block lists out to the edge to these point solutions. I think that, and whether you do that with Outbound Sync or something else, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I mean, we're using APIs and webhooks. I think we're doing some interesting stuff in the middle. We have done some things around handling like extremely large webhook payloads that get blocked by Clay and by Supabase because the payloads are so big. And so we've done, I think, a lot of interesting little things, dozens and dozens of little things that make it work better. But, at the end of the day, it's webhook payloads and API calls. But I think that, as if I'm an agency owner or if I'm even just like building a SaaS in this space, I think you have to have the humility to ask the question of like, what have the people who have come before us, what have they gotten right? What can I learn from them so that when I think about delivering services into clients like that are using tools like that and running motions like that, what should I be accounting for? Because just like building a sick clay table or, knowing how to check or uncheck every single box within these like pretty complicated platforms that we use every day, like that's not necessarily enough. They have other stakeholders. They have security concerns. They have like territories and they have routing and they have commission models and they have just like a lot of things that we don't think about every day. And so I think that that's like a lesson that's broadly useful and that I try to remember when I talk to customers every day. It's their job to be done is more than just sending email. They may bring an agency in to generate new leads and you can operate sort of like attached to a bigger company. But if you want to really integrate into their organization, you're going to have to think about like, who are the other customer stakeholders within that company? What do they need? And how can I kind of meet those concerns?
Yeah. That's one thing. I mean, so obviously I talk about cold outbound in terms of how I'm doing it for my clients and try and giving perspective to young agency owners, but also companies here, right? Like, so again, I'm pretty like transparent about what we do and how we do it with any of our clients or anyone that's asking, right? Like this is unfortunately like the Apollos and Outreaches of the world just to like have too many Achilles heels, like things that just completely hold them up from allowing people to be successful in cold outbound today. That, we use this multi-domain, multi-inbox sequencer or setup to build this engine and kind of like, but anyways, the end of the day, like the small agency owners and the companies would see Outbound Sync and this value in different ways. But one of the things we're often diagnosing with our clients is like, or with my team to my clients is like, there's like 20 people in this company that all care about different things. And we need to be able to make sure that there's not someone here that's like flying, under the radar, that's unhappy with their visibility internally, that's unhappy with something that they're not actively telling us, which is why we always need to reach out to these companies super proactively and every person at every level. So what do you think like Outbound Sync, for example, kind of solves for that?
Yeah, well, I'll just give you a shout first. I mean, yes, we have all these things we have to think about. So why would a company, despite all of these stakeholders and all of these concerns, why would they still sign up with Christian, and bring your team in? It's because you are on the outside. And like you've told me some of the offers that you ship for people, and I honestly think they're brilliant. And they're just not going to be the kind of things that someone's going to come up with in like 20-person Teams call where it's like, okay, everyone, like try to think of something creative. Like that's not where good ideas come from. Committees don't create beautiful, creative things.
Yeah.
That's where beautiful creative things go to die.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, we know that we've got these craftspeople, these really creative people that are on the edge using the interesting tools, coming up with crazy ideas. Like that's why they go to you. And so, you can't dilute that. You
Yeah.
can't take that away because that's why you're there. Because everyone on that call knows when you start like, okay, here's my 3 copy ideas. And that third one that makes everyone a little uncomfortable, you're like, that's the one we should do. Because that's the one that's going to be different than all the other noise that everyone's getting. So it's like, I mean, you do that brilliantly, like top 1% globally level of talent. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying it like it is.
Appreciate that.
And so, if you're listening to this and you're kind of you're on the uptake yourself and you're getting into this yourself, like you don't mistake, like that's why people like Christian are landing these types of customers, because that type of extraordinary creativity is what gets extraordinary results. So that's what gets you in the door with them. And then, so really, I think what we're talking about is retention and how do you maintain that client for 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 months so that churn doesn't kill your business. And that's where it's a combination of 2 things. One thing is just account management, or I guess 3 things probably. Account management, just having a person, maybe you can use AI for this. I'm pretty skeptical of that. I think if you're charging your clients enough, you can afford to pay someone to serve that client. If you're not, you should probably just increase your prices instead of spending like 12 hours in N8N. Just increase your prices a little bit to hire a smart person to help your customers. Account management process to kind of catch things and have automated checks and things like that. And then I believe the third part of it is getting that data in front of the client where they need it. So you're going to have 20 stakeholders. They may want 20 reports. Well, potentially you could build those reports inside of HubSpot and Salesforce so that if one sales manager just wants to see that they're hitting sent volume target numbers, great, get them that number. If the RevOps person just wants to make sure that there's no duplicates being created, we'll help them build a report inside of HubSpot where they can look at their duplicates. And then it's in their normal workflow so that you can do your thing. So Outbound Sync kind of exists as a bridge to get the data where those internal people need it and want it so that you can keep doing your thing. Like fundamentally, I see us as a connector for these creative folks who are doing this exceptional work. We do have internal teams who do hire people that can build these kind of engines in general, but they are the exception. 60 to 80% of the time, we're seeing the biggest companies. I mean, Windsurf, Gainsight, Reddit, HubSpot. I mean, these are companies that our agencies serve companies like these.
Yeah.
They're some of the
it's
biggest companies in
crazy.
the world. And they're hiring agencies like you, like yours, that are sitting in WhatsApp groups, sharing ideas like this. So there's obviously extraordinary talent there, but you have to be able to talk the talk, get things in the reports that the way they want to see it, kind of thing.
Yep. Yep. That's striking that balance of I mean, that's the client relationship, right? It's like making them happy in that way because it does take some nuance. You have to have been through the ringer a few times. Like we have to understand, we think it like we've definitely had clients who are like, oh, we're killing it. Like early on, there was this one client where like, oh, we're killing it. And they just pulled the plug on us one day. We're like, what? And we went and again, it was kind of relationship management. There was a couple stakeholders that their voices weren't being heard, and we were able to go and actually save the client by coming in and fixing it. But anyways, out of curiosity, what do you think the biggest challenges agencies and businesses are going to face in outbound in the next year or two? Because you mentioned, hey, like, I think the space is going to get interesting. Obviously, you and I have seen the evolutions from, hey, Apollo sequencer in 2018, where people were like, oh my gosh, this person's following up with me every 2 weeks forever. Like, we're like, oh my God, they said good Thursday morning. Wow, crazy. To where it is now today. Like, where do you think the challenges are going to unfold in the coming year?
Yeah, I mean, where we're focused, what we're seeing. So here's how I think about the market. I think that agencies are like the pioneers. And further, I think that the frontier never ends in this space. And so I think that there will always be people on the frontier exploring the edges. I think of it more as like exploring space rather than exploring Earth. There's always another planet, right? There's always like some new galaxy or whatever. I don't know. So I look to our agencies and agency partners and even people who we're not working with, but just who I'm in chats with for ideas and inspiration about what they're seeing working. And what that means for us right now is omni-channel. So you have these point solutions for calling, for social, and for email. And I think that people are going to start stitching them together in a way that that the original kind of outreach and sales off idea was built. But outreach and sales off basically built like a mediocre execution across all 3 of those channels. And I think there's going to be sort of best in class execution across multiple channels. using point solutions for each. So using, the email sequencers we've been discussing, social tools like Hey Reach we've been discussing, and then phone tools that either are parallel dialers or they're using power dialers with like validated numbers with like a high propensity to answer kind of thing. So that's where I think things are going to be going is omni-channel. I think that people who have built this expertise within one channel are going to break into multiple channels. And I would include, and this isn't really core to our business, but I would include traditional channels like
Yeah.
paid ads. I mean,
Yeah.
we're buddies with Alex Fine and Ali over at Understory. I mean, they're including paid ads in their offering. And
You're forgetting me, dude. I
do
come
you do
from
paid ads too?
yeah, I come from programmatic.
Well, I mean, I knew that was your background. I didn't know you were
Yeah.
doing that now.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
well, duh.
but you're nailing it. It's
But so yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry, my bad, dude. I didn't know that. I remember back in the day, I didn't realize you were still
yeah.
doing it. So yeah, so to me, that's so it's kind of like organized crime. At some point they start buying normal businesses, and I think there's kind of a guild with some of this outbound stuff. And at some point, you're like, hey, who owns that? Who owns that restaurant?
I love that, talking about this and me doing paid ads goes immediately to organized crime. Yeah.
Oh, I just listened to a really good interview with Ed Calderon talking about like cartels and stuff. So it's kind of on my
Nice.
mind.
No, you're right.
Yeah, so I think I think blending traditional with these kind of new, it's like, because why not? At some point, the delta or not delta, the alpha, like at some point you're like, how hard is it really to run this kind of ad? I mean, yeah, it's complicated, but like I've figured out all this other stuff. Why don't I just hire a PPC person or something like that, and then boom. So that's where I think it's going to go. And my bet is on agencies like yours and people like you and me who are learning fast. My bet is on the people that are growing and learning quickly rather than the traditional RevOps types agencies where they're very slow, they're very unresponsive, they're just starting to use Clay. I don't think that those types of service providers are going to be in a good spot. I think they are going to get smoked, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be it is a little wild westy, but everything will need to be tied back to omnichannel. I mean, that's where that's the direction paid ads went. Is like, hey, there's all of these different places where attribution is coming from. We need to be able to look across all of them. And then cold email is kind of becoming its own channel for that. And it's all just more omni-channel and tying those together. So we're doing dials as well. You see like Nick starting to layer in dialing, Enzo's layering in dialing as just like a core piece of it.
And even direct mail. People are starting to play around with direct mail a little bit. That.
I said this in like 2020. I love gifting and what's called, Stu Heineke has this great book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. And it's all about contact marketing is what he calls it, I believe. And he was a cartoonist for the New York Times. He would send these crazy things. I always used to play around with that. But I remember saying in 2018, I was like, dude, it's going to get bad. It's all just a circle. Some of it is maybe touching some boundaries of space, but a lot of it is just like, hey, guess what? Email's not working. We're dialing again. Dialing's not working. We're sending emails again. Sending email or sending mail again. Sending mail. Like eventually, I'm just gonna be knocking on doors again. Who knows? But we'll see how it goes.
I mean, you see some of this out of home stuff is starting to take off. These AI companies go out and they raise hundreds of millions of dollars, and what are they doing? They're buying billboards.
Yeah, I know. I mean, even the artisans and all of the shakeup that they've been doing. Well, dude, it's been great to chat with you. We're going to dive deeper into Outbound Sync in the next session and the live session. So we're going to flip over now. Amazing as always. And anyone obviously can watch this on YouTube and the other channels. But then the next session, we're going to be going into Outbound Sync and like you really showing people how it operates, because it is going to be a valuable, like any agency and or any kind of company that is smart enough to be getting on the SmartLeads, Instant Leads, Email Bisons of the world right now for their system. This is the tool that will make life a hell of a lot easier to tie it all together. So I'm going to jump over now, man. Been a pleasure as always. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
See ya.
Cool.